welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today I wanted to talk about how to have fun because I'm a wild and crazy party animal. No, I'm not. I used to be crazy, but I don't know that I was wild and crazy when I was drinking. But I wanted, since the holidays are coming around, tomorrow's Thanksgiving, I wanted to talk about like what Thanksgiving used to look like for me and what it looks like today and what fun looks like to me. I also wanted to, before I get started with that, I wanted to just remind you as we close out November, the November book is Finding Elevation by Lisa Thompson. And I've got about 4 hours left, so I need to push through. It's good. I mean, it's a good book, and I'm attentive, but it's not a page turner for me. So let's see if you feel differently. I am interested in seeing the end, but I'm not quite sure that I have a big plot that I'm waiting for, you know. So sorry, not to give no spoilers, but yeah, the review episode is coming up. I'm not sure what day it is, but it'll be after Thanksgiving. And so get finishing that book on mountain climbing and persevering through adversity and just being a human being. And then our November listener challenge, although I haven't talked about it much this month, is Harvest Your Strengths challenge. So each week, you should be focusing on identifying and cultivating a personal strength. What in your personal life, recovery life, career life, where do you find one of your strengths? And just focusing on that and being grateful for it. I think a lot of times I talk about some of the defects, right? I talk a lot about defects here, but it's important to also be grateful for the stuff that we flourish at, that we don't have to work at, that we're just naturally great at. So think about that. Okay, so the morning meeting this morning was about looking out for over elation. And what I was thinking about with that topic was how when I was drinking, the dogs have the zoomies. Oh dear, the dogs have the zoomies. Sorry. They're silly. Let's see if I can turn the camera around and you can watch it. Let's see what happens. On cue. It's on cue. Now they're not on the bed. Anyway, they did do a funny little ready, set, go. And Boris the fat dog is still running around like crazy. Okay, I'm sorry, you're missing it. It's live action, but you don't get to see it. Okay. So when I was drinking, alcohol was, I feel like when I was happy, it intensified that. It made elation, no, it made happiness elation. I only use elation and on special occasions. And that's what alcohol made me feel, was like elation, like got those happy chemicals, just like, spitting. And drinking made it so heightened that I used to say, Rachel's having a party and she's the only one coming. That's what it was like for me when I was drinking. And until it wasn't. When I think back to drinking, I often will romanticize the drink. I have to force myself to think about where that ended up, like play the tape forward and remember the times that I would cry myself to sleep, the times that I felt sorry for myself, that I was alone and I had no friends and nobody liked me. Like that wasn't true, but that's what my brain thought. My brain thought all of these really negative things when I would drink. And it would think that because my medication wasn't, my depression and anxiety medication was not working in full force when I was adding alcohol to all the chemicals that were spitting around in my body. That sounds terrible. And I will think about that. So, yeah, I have to force myself to think about those sad times because what my default reaction is when I think of things like Thanksgiving, I think about times when the kids and their father and I would go to his family's Thanksgiving occasion, and it was just a full blown out party. Like it was so much fun. The guys would go out and play football in the field. The women would stay in the kitchen, and the older men would watch football on TV. Like it was your classic American Thanksgiving. I was somewhere in between because I didn't really feel that enthusiastic about all the women being in the kitchen and the guys are outside playing football. Like that didn't rub me the right way. So, and plus I was too young to understand that. I mean, maybe people do this when they're younger, but I didn't because I wasn't fully aware of my surroundings and I was selfish. I didn't go into the kitchen and offer to help, which is what I do now. At least I try to. I think I'm not perfect at it. So I would like be in the kitchen because that's where it felt like I was supposed to be. And then I would go outside and watch the guys play football because that's where I really wanted to be. And actually, there was one time that I wanted to play, and freaking one of the guys like took me out. And I was like, okay, that was just rude. I mean, come on, it's Thanksgiving football in the field. So I always felt like I didn't really have a place. At that age, I didn't really even understand the rules of football, so I wasn't enthusiastic about watching it on TV with all of the older men either. But one thing that made me feel comfortable was drinking. So I would just dig into the wine and I would observe what everybody was doing. I would observe football. I would observe the women in the kitchen. I would observe the guys. And my out really was having these younger kids where I could drink and just follow them around. So there were times that I would end up downstairs in the toy room that was away from everybody, and I would just sit down there with the kids and play and drink my wine. And I was, I don't know, I was in my zone, I I've always been on the quiet side. At least then I was. I feel like during the time that I was drinking, I was not the most outspoken one in the group. So that was my fun. And by the time it was time to go home, I wouldn't say I was three sheets to the wind, but I had a lot of alcohol in me. I definitely wasn't driving or shouldn't have been driving if I was. But I never got to this point where I was just completely unable to function, even though I was drinking the whole freaking time. Like I always had a glass in my hand. I would never set it down. So having that glass in hand constantly at Thanksgiving, when it was time to not have a glass in hand, when I was quitting drinking, it was very uncomfortable. Now, at this time, when I quit drinking, I was no longer with the kid's dad anymore. So I wasn't around that same environment where everybody was drinking. I actually was with my current husband, and his family doesn't drink at these events. And my family, it's there, but it's not a party. So I think my environment thankfully changed before I got sober. And what I didn't realize was like when I got sober, that's when I noticed that I was the only one still partying in my head. That was the party Rachel was going. Rachel was having a party and nobody else was going. I continued to feel like I was in that drinking environment, but I was the only one throwing down drinks. And that's fascinating to me that that I never noticed the environment changed. So when I stopped drinking, it was time for me to watch and learn. And I feel like just like kids learn from watching their parents, just like Boris, my fat bulldog, has learned how to behave from Autumn, the crazy Weimaraner, who's staring at me with crazy eyes right now. Boris learned how to behave from her. So when she has the zoomies, he has the zoomies, and it's silly looking. But that's how I needed to learn how to behave in a non-drinking environment, or learn how to behave soberly in a drinking environment. And one way that I learned how to do this, and this has taken practice, is find that thing that is celebratory for me. So when I first stopped drinking, I went through the gambit of different types of beverages that I enjoyed. And I was everything like missed the mark. I tried sparkling water, and it was just I drank sparkling water for a long time, for like a year or so. And it just didn't quite do it for me, but it was better than drinking water. And it was better than drinking Coke, because that's not good for you to drink as much Coke as I was drinking wine. So sparkling water was just like this really happy, good medium place for me to be. I've noticed a lot of people in early sobriety drink sparkling water, and they have all kinds of sparkling water now. And it seemed like it was just starting to come out right when I was getting sober, which was about 8.5 years ago, which is kind of funny. Maybe it was already out and I didn't notice it until I got sober. Sorry, Boris is still in zoomy mode while Autumn is like, okay, time to settle down. So what I ended up finding, one day I thought, you know what would be nice if I made myself like a really special drink. I didn't want to call it a mocktail because that would remind me of drinking. So I thought, I want to make something refreshing and fun. So I had sparkling water and I put strawberry lemonade in it. And then I put a couple strawberries in it. And that I was off to the races. At that point, that's what my spritzer is that I've told you guys about in the past, you longtime listeners, when I would say, it's time for a spritzer. That's what I would say at home. And it was like a celebratory thing. So at the end of the day, I would have a spritzer, and it was just, it wasn't unhealthy. It just had a splash of strawberry lemonade in it. And it was hydrating too. So that became my thing. And I drank a couple of those every night. And it was good. It made me feel like the day had come to an end and I have this special treat for myself. I liked it. And then when it was really, when we're talking like crazy, hang your pants on the ceiling fan kind of fun. Not really. I don't know why I thought of that. I would drink a Coca-Cola. So I probably had, and I call it a Coca-Cola because that adds to the special part of it. I have to call it a Coca-Cola. So when I go out to dinner and very seldom I'll ask they ask what you'd like to drink. And I say, I would like a Coca-Cola. And they always smile because I don't think they hear it very much. Usually people say Coke, but it just adds to that feeling that it is a special time when I get to have my Coca-Cola. So I would probably average about one Coke a month. I think that's how little I was drinking it. And it really made it amazing to have that. When I had my stroke, I had Coca-Cola in the hospital. And then I would have it at every meal in the hospital. I was in there for 5 days. So when I got out of, except for breakfast, when I got out of the hospital, I was craving Coca-Cola. So I have been drinking Coca-Cola since my stroke regularly. I was drinking one a day, sometimes two. And I've told you before, like I started getting to this point where it was super, super bothersome to me that I was going through that many cans, like actually just for earth consciousness. So my husband said, SodaStream has a partnership with Pepsi now. And I thought, ooh, Pepsi. But I said, okay, let's do it because I didn't feel right going through all those cans. So that's what I did. So I started drinking Pepsi. It took several days for me to adjust from Coca-Cola to Pepsi because Pepsi tasted like kind of medicine-y to me after getting off of Coca-Cola. But I did. I made the transition, and then he ordered some other flavors for me. And lo and behold, I am back to drinking spritzers. So I had some pomegranates that my mother-in-law gave me. So I opened those. I have a bowl of pomegranates, and now I make a spritzer with pomegranates in it, and it's really good. Pomegranate seeds. So that's my feel good. You've done a good job today. It's time to unwind kind of thing. I have been having spritzers. Maybe I'll have one for lunch and I'll have one for dinner. But again, they are hydrating and they have a little bit of sugar in them, which is nice because I love me some sugar. But it feels rewarding when I have my spritzer in the SodaStream. Somebody mentioned this morning about when I was drinking, I would, like, if I started feeling this happy and excited feeling and I started drinking over that, it's almost like that true, deep feeling of happiness became artificial. It's not that I wasn't happy, but the more I drank, the less deeper I felt it. It's more like it became very surface. And the more and more I would drink, that happiness by the end of the night, deep into the midnight, quite often would turn rotten on the inside. That happiness would turn into some sort of depression or sadness. And that's why I need to play the tape forward. When I think about happy times when I'm drinking, I have to think about, but how did that day end? Yes, this might have happened and it was really fun, but how did that day end? And I can think of one specific example. My best friend and I, we would always spend Cinco de Mayo, wait, no, St. Patrick's Day together. And we would start in the morning and drink all day. And it was my favorite day of the year. So one year we went to a local bar, and we started at, I don't know, 8 o'clock in the morning, and we were drinking at this bar all day long, drinking green beers all day long. And by the time dinner rolled around, they said that they had made reservations for the table that we were sitting at, and that we had to give the table over. Well, I was willing to do that, and my friend was really angry that we had spent a lot of money there that day, and they were going to kick us out of our seats, and that it was their problem if they had reservations and they need to figure it out. I felt like they're running a business, they have reservations. It's time to move on. It's not like we hadn't been sitting there all day long. So whichever answer was right, I don't know. But what happened was her and I got in an argument. So after a whole day, and her and I never argued. I mean, that was one of the only times I remember ever arguing with her. And that was how the night ended. And as much fun as I can remember having that day, if I don't force myself to remember how it ended, I might romanticize the drink. I might think about, yeah, it is so nice when you have a whole day, you don't have to do anything, you could just drink all day. Like, I used to love that. And that was what holidays were for me. They were excuses to drink what I thought no other people drank like. I thought everybody was partying on the holidays. It turns out I was the only one partying on the holidays. Other people were having a drink with dinner. So I really had to figure out, how do people have fun without drinking? And that required observation. So I needed to watch people when I showed up at holiday events. I needed to watch people at birthday celebrations, at picnics, see what are people doing with their hands even. Because I always had that in my hand. I always had a drink in one hand and my vape or a cigarette in the other hand, depending on what year it was that I was thinking back to. But I always had something in my hands, and I had to look at, what are people doing with their hands? And I noticed that people aren't doing anything with their hands. A lot of people, like I am now, are talking with their hands. And that was fascinating to me. So when I went to these events, I practiced standing there and moving my hands the way that other people move their hands. I know that sounds bizarre, but that's how uncomfortable I was in my own skin. I had to see what other people did with their hands and mimic that movement. Going to things like weddings where people are dancing, that terrified me. I went to a wedding on my husband's side. So it was a Persian wedding. And when it was the reception, when everybody was dancing, they started doing Persian dancing, which I had never seen before. And they do stuff with their hands. And I thought, oh, I can do that. So I was all ready to dance at the Persian wedding, which is funny. But The most recent wedding I went to was for a neighborhood friend of my son's. We were very close with this family, and the mother of the groom asked me to go out and on the dance floor and dance with her. And I was like, no, you don't want me to do that. No, I can't dance. Well, I had to go out there with her. I mean, the mother of the groom asked me to go out on the dance floor with her. So I was like, okay, but you're going to regret this. And I'm telling you, I looked like a fool. Like almost shaking because I was so nervous and uncomfortable. And I know at one point she looked at me and she was probably like, oh, okay, I get it. Like when I was drinking, I was going to say I could dance. That's not the case. I couldn't dance, but I felt okay with the fact that I couldn't dance. Um, I could move without I could move without being nervous. Like I was loose. Yeah, I was loose. But when I am not drinking, I'm not loose like that. Like I don't care, like I'm flailing myself around. When I'm by myself in my house and I'm dancing with my dogs, that's what I'm like. I'm loose and I'm having no reservations. But when I'm around people, I feel like I'm being judged and looked at, and maybe I can work on that. But so I guess my point is that I still haven't perfected having fun sober. And it's been 8.5 years. I still get a little uncomfortable holding my hands by my side and not holding anything in my hands. So sometimes I'll hold my spritzer in my hand or something like that. But I continue to seek out observing people who are not drinking. How are they carrying themselves and what do they do? And that's how I have learned how to behave on things like holidays and picnics and stuff like that. And one thing that's cool is in sobriety, they offer the program that I'm a part of, my network, AA, provides safe places to have fun. They're called alkathons, where you can go and they'll have meetings every hour on the hour or every even hour. And it's a place to go that's safe. So if you don't feel like you can trust yourself on the holidays, you can go there and spend the day there. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, the people in AA are professional partiers. That's what I've always called them. So I have graduated to professional partier, and it's just quite hilarious, honestly. There's lots of good food there. They have dancing. I still don't dance. People try to get me to. I'm still uncomfortable doing that, but I'll work on it maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I need to dance. I feel more comfortable not dancing. Yeah, so that's what I've got for you today. I feel my spirit continuing to lift as the holidays draw near. So today, Thanksgiving being tomorrow, today I'm going to be wrapping Christmas presents because I got a nice early start on Christmas, and just because I need to in order to accommodate my head, my disability. So I'm going to be wrapping Christmas presents, and I'm going to be making some candles because that's going to be a new hobby if it works out right. We're going to see. I'm taking all safety precautions, so we'll see. And that's what I've got. So happy holidays if I don't talk to you. I am planning on recording on Thanksgiving, but if I don't, you know where I am. I'm out there having a fun, sober holiday. So I hope you do the same. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you maybe tomorrow, but definitely on Friday.